Onegaishimasu.
Big left. Okay, we'll just start. Now we just take a little bit swing in front of the. The sides. Rotation up. Get out. Interesting. Switch. I'm just taking to a little bit of inside outside. Let's take one variation with this is like a dive. It should be like a big roll of shuttles. And so you've got kind of a basic at the back. The center line. Just let it curl back up. with the breath, this will be like an in-breath as you come up all the way to the top. And slowly transition into the outward as you go. And if you want to, with this one, you go so spend a little bit of time in that position. Ooh, this is very bad. Okay. And then just take this, working with different directions, so you can take it kind of up and around and over to the one side. There's one kind of direction for it. You could also come back up the other way. You could come up to the center line, but that would be like a gathering. And then just kind of choose and give yourself the direction. So the body's come back to kind of neutral with it. Take another deep breath. Now the body could go one way. Center line. Slightly different direction with this one. Just be careful this one. Could put potentially a bit of strain on the lower back. But think about more of a kind of scooping motion next. It's like a scoop up into it. And then you could think of this as the release is just kind of drop down. So kind of take one direction. The reason it might be a little bit aggravated is because you're going into a kind of full extension as you come up through the bend. So just take it gently. I think about kind of picking up something big and heavy and then dropping it down. So this one's would be like a scoop. Again, you could play in different directions. The easy one, easier would be like to the front, just dropping. And again, after you take to the sides, you could potentially go into a little bit of rotation with it. Think of this as like a gathering around the front, maybe. Would be like picking up. You could play with the distance between the hands. You could play with the amount of extension away from the body. And you could also play with, if you think about dropping something, you could drop it at the feet. You could drop it a little bit away, a little bit to the side. Nice, nice. Yeah, good. Next one is a little bit of a tricky one. You could do solo. It's a nice one to do with a weight. What I think about this one is like a very heavy weight in the hand, and just trying to get the body to kind of move the object. So in this case, not so much about taking the hands and pulling them up, but just kind of creating a movement. It's generally going to be like the hips, lower body, knees, something like that. In this case, if you do it with the hands, you could do them kind of clasped together. But what I think about is trying to get the weight in the arms because if you don't have an object, you might be easy to kind of let the arms drag down. And just think about passing movement from the hips. Oh, or if you're John, you've got a big mace, that's cool. Really cool. I'm just going to mute it. Cool. Great. So yeah, the one, see if you can not get out of in a sense, but you obviously want the chest to be engaging in some level, but try and avoid the one that goes like the chest engages first, and then the upper portion of the arms kind of go with it. So maybe play also with like really loosening up the shoulders, so like loosen them up a little bit. Feel the main feedback for this one would be if I'm kind of holding the arm, would be if the joints start to lock, or the feeling of the joints locking. So for play with a movement where the wrists feel that they're still released, and then try and keep it as you go into whatever the movement is. So a really simple one would be like a kind of side to side sway of the hip, obviously kind of front and back, like you do like a kettlebell swing. The main movement I would play with first would be like more like a hinging pattern. So it would be, you could start with different movements. One would be like maybe the knees kind of the play in the knees. The main one I would go to first would be like the hips. So maybe it's more like just a kind of simple hinge forward and back. This kind of way, and just letting the body kind of fold. It's one of the most easiest movements in a sense to do, because it just involves the major joint going back, like the hip pelvis kind of area joints. And then just kind of check in maybe the knees, see if they're kind of soft, loose, release. And then from there, you take it anywhere. So I would play with basically keep the weight even in the feet in a sense, and then just play within the base. So that would be like, in a sense, letting the upper body follow the hips. And then obviously the hands are going to kind of flow with it as well. So you think about like a swing is a nice one. So I wouldn't yet take it to kind of swaying weight into one leg. Maybe it's just draining into it. And the next part of that would be like maybe just letting the hands go up a little bit. Few ones you could do like again through and kind of raising. So maybe it's starting to lift the arms up a little bit more as well. And you could do also kind of circle. Again, those tricky positions as you come up, because where weight, actually having a weight will kind of help a lot or assist a lot as well in that feeling. But just noticing what happens as you go up to the kind of top position, noticing the position of the shoulder. Right. So then just explore a little bit there. And maybe it's every once in a while, just slightly changing the hand position. So you could do like fingertips together quite light. You could do a kind of fully locked position with the fingers interlaced. You're kind of, like this is a nice one as well. You're kind of taking the thumbs out of it. Try and feel this one. Actually, this one's a really nice one. It's one that actually comes from jiu-jitsu later when you go to kind of holds, strangle holds usually. It's quite a strong grip. You're not kind of including the thumbs in. It means the thumbs don't get injured in the movement, but you're basically creating a kind of hook with the arm and then dropping into it. When you get pressure, obviously this way, someone trying to pull out this way, the hand just kind of goes into the hook. You've got the pressure down this way. It's a nice one because you can create kind of traction in the joint as well. So if I think about just a gentle pull this way, to traction the joint here, and a little bit of a pull this way, or a drop this way in the elbows to kind of traction the wrist. So just play a little bit with the, and in the motion, maybe that traction gets increased actually if the joint's released. If it's held, again, it will get just kind of passed up. But if you think about a little bit of traction, by raising the hand up and just allowing the joint to slightly traction. Again, it's also sometimes the benefit of the weight that it can just include that feeling. But nice to also do, again, kind of empty-handed with it. But again, just think maybe a slightly tricky one because you're kind of adding pull a little bit of the body, so the tendency there is to increase tension in the arm. And then what I would play with in this one is just allow yourself to maybe separate the hands a little bit, or allow them to kind of come together at some point and drop. And just play, and then what I'd start to play with is, because you've got more freedom in the handwork, play with maybe the feet, the play in the feet, and play also then going into maybe kind of spiral work to this. And again, don't allow yourself to be totally restricted by the hands. The problem of having the hands together is one of the problems could be that it starts to restrict all the movement of the body, particularly in rotation work. So give yourself a little bit of freedom to work with. You could imagine maybe working with a sword or a jo, kind of start to open up the grip a little bit. You could also think about working maybe like a tanda. Pass it around. We might do a little bit of those. Yeah, just to kind of check in on the joint system as you're doing it. Just kind of keep that as a main focus. As we've been doing kind of recently as well, start to think about maybe the position of the head, and again, just maybe using it, so maybe just allow the head to start to find objects in the space. Or also the other one you could do is look at obviously objects, but the other one will be like using the periphery of the vision and just allowing the eyes to kind of settle. So maybe less of a focus one, and just the sense maybe of just like tracing lines with the eyes, and just thinking of maybe kind of the movement in the hands, just kind of brushing or whatever hand movement's coming out as. Allow the eyes to kind of follow that movement as well. So you could do one where the eyes lead the movement, but I would go to one where the eyes actually follow the movement, so it would be like the eyes a little bit maybe delayed or a little bit left behind, and just being kind of pulled with the movement. So then again, I would just have to expand a little bit more, maybe into rotation work, spiral work. Once you feel comfortable with that, maybe this goes into a little bit of dropping work as well. So maybe that movement again just starts to sway through. Just do it as a kind of waking up the legs a little bit. So it might be like those squat positions, and you might also pick a movement and just play within that movement as well. So maybe like a squat position is a really good one. Deep position. Just different positions for the spine to move in. And just checking with the joint system a little bit that it can follow. And then other positions would be like a long lunge position, maybe like a one-legged. And again, just passing a movement down it. You might feel, depending on the position, you might feel that it's easy to work one side. Those low positions are really great because you can really release up. So I would use those positions as maybe a kind of swing through. So keep that feeling of that heaviness in the arms. Right. So just notice kind of movements that start to come up. The other one that's play with this one that's nice, because one tendency is that let's say if I'm going through a movement and then it starts to go into the arms, but then I start to carry the arms through, and then the arms start to do it. So play with one which will be like, I'm going to be in a movement, like I'm going to feel the arms, and then I'm going to really try and pass the movement to the arms, and then maybe kick the movement, and then let it go, and then see what happens to the arms. A little bit like you would do the Newton's cradle thing. Kind of pull it up, release it. There's lots of activity, and then it slowly starts to come back to kind of neutral position to rest, basically. Just playing maybe every so often just allows you to kind of give the movement a bit of a kick, see where it goes, and then just let it kind of release down. Yeah, and that could be, again, lots of different qualities you could play with that. Yeah, that's it. That's it. That's it. So that's it. Right. And then we'll just go to this one because it's kind of coming up quite a lot. Think about more of us going to, I would use the shoulders again, it's a nice one. You could use any part of the body really, and you could also do this down, but just think about the main feeling with this would be to like catch your movement, kick the movement into the hand.
And as long as the joint system is relatively relaxed, maybe it starts to kind of snap back into the body. But again, the key with this one, nothing wrong with it necessarily, but would be like perspective to the body. Just play with kind of catching a movement, and then kind of snap the connection a little bit, and then let it go. Yeah, and let it go as long as the arm kind of goes back. And then maybe go to the other side or stay to the same side, but really let it kind of snap out, and then let it go. And just let the body kind of go every so often, just to really neutral, or as neutral as possible there. So the one idea with this exercise would be that you're trying to send not just the movement to the hand, but the intention to move it. So the intention to go to the shoulder. Also, it needs to be very clear, because if that's kind of unclear, the hand maybe goes into other positions, or maybe gets confused. So it's just giving a very clear signal, or wherever you want to go with it. Shoulder's kind of easy one in terms of it's kind of simple movement. And then play goes to a little bit more of an alternating one. So again, the danger in this one is that it becomes kind of carrying and hitting the arms up. Just play with it as long as you can kind of keep the feeling of the body kind of loose. And it's quite light. Just because if you kind of speed up, obviously, and let the hands loose, it's going to go might get quite a heavy slap on the body. So obviously, just adapt it. Feel things like the arm, again, the arm kind of tensioning up, particularly here in the front of the arm. If you notice that starts to kind of tense up and carry, just kind of release it down again. So trying, maybe it needs to shake out a little bit before you do it. And then I would just, again, try and gather the movement of the arms. And then this one's going to be like a kind of rotation through the hips. So if you were to condense, that would be like this kind of motion. And trying to get that motion into the hands. And the shoulder's going to be the kind of key joint in this case, because if the shoulder's locked, that movement's going to be restricted. So as you're doing the kind of the front hand bit, you might also get the back hand starts to kind of release with it. If the body's reasonably even, it's going to kind of work that way as well. That's yeah, good. Great. And then so sometimes nice, like as a kind of percussive one, would be like this kind of movement. So it's nice to do that, but play now maybe with one which is, I think of this like a kind of softer one, and it's a little, I think of this one a little bit, the contact point's lighter, but I think about the contact with the hand on the body would be maybe like a little bit heavier, and then it's the feeling maybe of like pulling out. You can think about like, I've got two images of this. One would be like Velcro, and kind of ripping it off the body. The other one would be like chewing gum, and kind of, and so sometimes it might kind of go back to the body, but again, I'm just trying to notice if the arm's kind of held with it. So again, if you think about a lot of the movements we're making in terms of particularly M10 work, but there is a time when there's kind of maybe also taking a kemi as well, where there's locks onto the body. And if I'm thinking of one idea, which would be like creating space for the joint system and opening up space in the body, and it's just a kind of nice one. You could also, the other feeling with this would be maybe like a kind of yo-yo kind of feeling. It's kind of pulling and opening, so it's a little bit of a softer movement maybe. But again, relies on that kind of flexibility through the joint system, or the openness of the joint system. And it maybe just means, again, that the kind of contact point on the body's a bit heavier. And it's the feeling maybe to kind of whip it out or keep it. The other one would be like a kind of magnetic kind of So there's a few images, but well, there's maybe different ways. There's lots of ways to play with this, obviously. But and just maybe play with different periods. So that the shoulder's kind of a good one, because particularly for arm work, because the tendency is to kind of carry, and it's really easy, very easy to notice whether it's been carried. So the shoulder's a really nice one for that. You could also play like on the legs, on the thighs as well. So you could play with like the hands being in contact, and I'm going to try and like draw them out from the body, and then let them come back. And then you could also kind of individuate at the sides, or you could take them different ways. So maybe in this one, it's just exploring a little bit more side movement, but allowing the shoulder to kind of release now. Again, nice one for the shoulder because it's very easy to notice carrying motions with the shoulder. And again, if I think about movement in this case, the lower the hand is, maybe that's the movement starts to kind of open from as well. So maybe just brings a bit of awareness to that part of the body you're kind of working in. And again, it might be just taking it down. Very simple ones like hinging. The main one with this then, if the arms are down, would be like kind of drop the weight into the feet again, and kind of the raise of the arms is going to be from a kind of drop down. Obviously, the other way you could do this would be like the hands are on the body and I split the hips away, or I kind of push the hips forward and push the hands away. But try and, if you think about with this one, try and think about again, it's like a kind of drop down. And the drop down is actually it's a kind of primary movement in a sense. If you think about all the bottom work and everything, if you think about the moment just before you raise, there's going to be a kind of feeling down, which actually causes the raise. I think of it like a pulley system. So you've got like a heavy weight on one side, and it drops and it raises the other thing. So it's just this kind of action, and it's just trying to get this ordering where it's actually that impulse down that's going to kind of cause the raise in this one. So, and then it's very, well, the smaller movements are going to be the kind of the ones you kind of notice that feeling. It tends to be the kind of habitual movements that we do all the time, like picking stuff up. They tend to be the ones that we're probably not doing it because in terms of like energy costs are very low, so we can get away with doing that stuff. But if you think about it's just a little bit heavier maybe. No, that's great. And then we'll just go back to the swing ones. It's a really nice one. But just think again about that impulse. So the tendency again with this is once I get into the swing, maybe I just kind of, the weight goes to the hands and then the movement goes down. So think about every so often with the swing, really allows it to drop in this way and let the body just naturally come back to neutral. And then again, let the arms kind of follow the movement. And then pick them up and then go. So the actual, the focus of these exercises, like saw, the focus tends to go to a lot of the swing down, and the raise gets a little bit kind of left behind. So I think in this case, really trying to find the feet, and then again that sense that I drop the weight down, and the arms kind of raise from there. So it's trying to get that feeling in the body. And the one I want to avoid in this case would be, again, nothing wrong with this, would be like the weight raising, but with the hands as well. So the weight going more towards the head. But I think about the weight of the body in this case going towards the feet. If I can get the weight to the feet, maybe I can get the feeling of the weight to go beyond the feet. And it's doing that anyway. So it's just whether I can actually just kind of align with it. This is where the principle work comes in, and it's just maybe giving a name to the principle and then just aligning behind it. The great thing about all principles are actually working the same actual thing. So some people talk about relaxation or whatever, aligning to gravity, or whatever you want to call it. They're all, in a sense, working with the same idea. In this case, just kind of playing with the ordering of the movement in this sense. All right. And then in a way that's quite easy to do with a swing, or once you get it, it's kind of easy. Think about more maybe now like again, it's very simple stuff like reaching out, and this maybe is where you're kind of asking the joint to kind of hold position. So it can be anything, but think again about kind of a drop down. So it might mean again just maybe focusing on one side. Obviously, the other hand's going to be kind of included with it. It could be, once you've got a feel for that, it could be like very simple one. You could also go to any contact point. So you could think about elbow, kind of the forearm, reach out with the finger, just to go like very simple ones. But again, noting particularly kind of habitual ones will be like reaching out. And then they tend to be, again, maybe a lot out, maybe a bit out of balance and maybe a bit tense. So it's just the question of whether I can do them in a sense where there's like kind of as little added energy spend possible. So it'd be like the laziest I can do the movement in a very mindful way, something like that. Notice, again, very subtle thing. In a way, I need to do these very slow, but notice things like if I reach forward, what happens back to the body. So you might get things like counterbalancing coming up. Again, not wrong, and it's like the body needs to counterbalance on some level. But maybe, again, the more I'm kind of dropping the weight down, and the more that's true, the less necessity to kind of counterbalance, particularly with a simple movement. So again, notice it, particularly if I go then would take this to like a strike or something. Notice things like the weight going, passing forward, leaving the feet, or again, counterbalancing back. And just look for one that's maybe you're just at the feet, basically. So if we switch to something like grounding as a principle, would be like, where is the ground as you're doing the movement? Peter Ross got a very simple one for this, which is the ground is right at your feet, obviously. Tends to go the other way, and the ground goes away. Somewhere, and then I don't really notice it, and the body goes into holding. So I would just play with maybe like a little bit more of a kick out again, and maybe it becomes more of a striking movement. You could equally do like a kind of slapping motion, bring that kind of swing back in. The other kind of interesting one would be, as if you're thinking about one hand, just notice what the other hand starts to maybe naturally do. So obviously it can just drop down and relax and kind of take a break, but notice you might start to get things like this happen, and the arm wants to be kind of included with it. Listen to that and just maybe work with it a little bit. So as long as the joint kind of relax, you can go to any position, obviously. So just notice now maybe the active hand that you've got doing something. Notice what will be like the passive hand in this case. And that case, never really passive in terms of movement. Just put a little bit of attention to the other hand now. And just before, there's the last one. If you think about kind of percussive movements or movements that would have a kind of percussive effect, like this kind of feeling, think about one of the, it's a bit of a weakness in the system in that we go to like percussion and then hold, like percussion hold, and it really shows us where you get a lot of stiffness in the joint. This kind of feeling. So think about maybe doing it with a little bit of a lighter touch. You could think about kind of yokomen's a good one coming through. You could think about just a kind of basic kind of slapping movement, but think about the point where there would be a percussion. And just basically go through it. So the tendency is to, again, kind of notice that we have a kind of maybe a trained position, which would be like that and hold the joint. Just play with the kind of swing through. Every once in a while, just check that position and just go, I'm going to hit and hold it. And notice, again, if the joint system is still free, again, you get kind of feedback in the joint. If the hand's really loose, the fingers are loose, you'll get a kind of maybe a vibration kind of feeling through it. If it's held, it will be the feeling of it being held. So nothing wrong with kind of creating hand shapes. Obviously, it's where you're going to kind of protect the hand and fists and things like this. And it's the kind of necessary tension that I need. Obviously, I want to protect the wrist and protect the hand. And particularly things like yokomen, I wouldn't want to go like that and attack because then you leave the thumb open, leave the hands, fingers very easy to get injured, but just in terms of a movement with this, you could again play with things like 𝗓𝗡𝗡𝗘 kind of movements, punches. You could play also again with this with elbows, so elbows going through, and then again maybe every once in a while just play with the ability to control it. But I think a lot of those dangers in the system come also from this idea of like safety, where I'm kind of stopping and holding position, and then the tendency to kind of, and the worst would be like actually hitting on the safety position would be like not on target and basically hitting away. So then it would be like where you actually train to hit, and that's one of the worst things you can train in martial arts when you need it, and then you go, oh, stop short. So I would play with really follow through with it basically. So whatever the movement, you can play with following through, and then every once in a while play with controlling it, but try and feel that the brakes are being put on by the body rather than kind of holding the hand. So again, it's just, if you go back to this idea of kind of grounding, dropping weight down, that's where you're going to get the control in a sense is going to come from. So the ability to control the hand in this case from the ground, or the pathway from the ground. And the more the weight's being drained down, or you're using that, the heavier the strike tends to be, the heavier the movement tends to be. So it probably feels lighter for the body, but that's the kind of danger of the training, that it feels a lot different than kind of tension striking, which probably gives the body a lot of feedback and feels powerful, but probably isn't in terms of movement. Yeah, good. Great. And then just play a little bit of this. Play with either a Joe or a Bokken. I'm going to pick up a Joe just because, but feel free to kind of change with it. But I'm just going to, Joe's really good because you can kind of play with different kind of movements. And just play with the same kind of thing, so you can choose any grip. Again, you could think about kind of percussive movements eventually, but I just think about first thing, just getting the weight of the weapon in the hands. You can do this Bokken and Joe. I'm going to kind of switch in between as well. But you can do also with a Tanto. Obviously, different movements might start to come up depending on the weapon. But first thing will be just kind of get used to the weight. Again, notice the tendency maybe to get the weight and carry it around the body. Do things like this and just get the feeling of again, feel the heaviness of the weapon and feel it's just the extent again that I'm kind of connecting in to the weapon. And actually feeling where the tip is in space, so that the sensation of weight's going to be where I'm going to kind of notice. That's going to give me most of the information about the positioning, but also the position of my own hand, obviously the position of the finger, the direction of the arm, the shoulder. And again, notice maybe the tendency with that added weight, so the body to maybe leave a little bit, maybe forward, maybe there's counterbalancing issue starts coming up. Just keep going back to the idea of like dropping to the feet. So you could take this anywhere, obviously start to maybe go into 𝗓𝗡𝗞𝗜𝗚𝗍 patterns or whatever. The main thing is like in the activity not to get pulled out again. So just keep going back to the feet. It's like, this is why like walking is really, really great, because you don't really have an option if you're kind of walking. You need to just drop into the feet all the time. Running is maybe a little bit different. You get kind of carried away. But the more, in a sense, you can kind of start to drop into the feet. Whatever the movement is, maybe it starts to be kind of driven by that. And then once you get it, maybe it's starting to come into things like very light movements. I wouldn't go into any really specific. Obviously things come up, but then think about maybe again kind of percussive movements coming through. It could be hitting, striking, swinging. Doesn't even have to be related to martial arts. Could be things like kind of racket swing, or swing, whatever kind of movements start to come up. Might be things like sweeping, also a really good one. Things to spend all day doing, sweeping floors, or different things. But just play with, again, maybe just get into that feeling. And every once in a while, just kind of switch out. So maybe play with the Bokken a bit. And just get used to the feeling. Obviously, it's got a kind of designed quality, so then the weight's different. And just looking for a feeling of the weapon. Doesn't have to be very complicated to be challenging. Just note some things again, like the counterbalancing. Yeah, the balance of the jerk. Cool. That's good. Nice. And maybe it also needs to go to things like a canto or something, so you could fix them out. Around different kind of weapons, going to give you a little bit of different feeling, maybe different possibilities. They might generate a different feeling in the body. I was on an Aikido course one time, and the teacher actually said that we shouldn't train weapons because they create evil intent in the body. Because when you pick up a weapon, it's to kill somebody. So this is anti Aikido, which maybe is right. But somebody's got to be the aggressor in training. So anyway, but very interesting theory. I don't subscribe to it at all. Interesting theories. And just kind of feel free to play with different movements. You might want to just stick to one. You might stick to one. See what comes up. If you ever seen the movie Lone Wolf and Cub, he gives the young son a choice between the katana, the blade, and the toy balls, and the baby has to choose between sword or toy. And it sets his path for the rest of his life. But actually, for you don't need to choose. You could also just play with the sword. But anyway, there's a story. Let's just go to, it's one movement, it's kind of coming up as well, and it's a nice one for the Balkan as well, particularly for the shoulder, and this idea of a kind of ground pat. This one, Andrea teaches a lot, which is a really cool one, which it's just a kind of, it's like a modification of the swing through. It includes also, if you were to do this with a bit more space, it will be like this pattern, and then you can take it to the back. You can do different patterns, so you could do a one where you're kind of extending all the way through the tip. So two ways you could play with this one. It would be like arm, maybe a little bit more extended, kind of going through a pattern this way. And then the other one could also be like the elbow, maybe flexing as you come up. So there's different ways you could play with. You could, we'll play with a few variations of it. Again, the main one with this will be something like, just be careful of the spine basically distorting. So maybe as it goes forward, maybe the spine starts to kind of pull out. And as you go back, maybe the spine starts to kind of pull out of position. So what I would think about with this one, and if you start to let that happen a lot, play with maybe the feet, maybe just the position of the feet, and then give yourself a little bit more freedom here. Thoracic spine is going to be kind of where the rotation is going to happen, but it's also going to be potentially where the splitting happens in the structure. So just notice particularly the, obviously the position of the shoulders is going to be important. And again, that feeling of creating a clear connection down towards the feet. And again, noticing the weight of Okan maybe starts to send the body away, or send it back, or send it into counterbalancing. And not that those are wrong, they're just going to kind of interfere with, in the sense of finding the way down, in a sense. And then you could do this by like alternating the hands, but let's just go to one where you're actually in the sword grip. So again, play with the feet a little bit. You could do this 90 square on. Play with more position coming to the back now. So you're kind of releasing it, let it go all the way to the back and then drop into the other side. So let it reach the back and then drop in. Much as possible, kind of keeping it calm. you could also kind of just settle into this position as well and just notice where the body is and then let it go. Oh, don't hit the plants. Don't hit the furniture. It maybe once in a while it's just worthwhile like pausing that position, particularly that position, because it tends to be like a high stress position, or in terms of the body. So the tendency is to go into maybe a position like this, just before the movement goes into that. So maybe find a position again you can drop in and then let it drop in. Drop in. And a little bit go back to that feeling before. It's like the sword's kind of stuck to the back a little bit, and I'm trying to peel it off the back. So obviously you could split it with the hands off the back and kind of use a lot of energy to do that. Or you could just kind of peel it off this way. So just start to play, and maybe also means just going down the center as well. So play with three things. One will be like releasing to the right side, letting it go, releasing to the left side, and then the would be just releasing straight down. Obviously just be careful of the flow on all of them, but particularly the last one. And then it's just going again, whatever the activity of the arm that I'm asking the body to do, just notice where the weight's going all the time. So in this case, if I'm kind of evenly weighted, the weight's kind of easier to find. And then once you've got a feel for that, just start to maybe bring the feet in. So it would be like, a basic one would be like stepping together with the feet and then dropping back. Stepping with the feet together, dropping back. Also stepping with the feet together, dropping back, finding the center line. So just start to mix in a sense, like doing the 𝗧𝗔𝗞𝗘𝗠𝗨𝗦, but with a potential to open. You could also let the body all the way through to the back, all the way through, and back to center. And use the kind of, again, the position at the back of the spine is against the most neutral position you will get to in this as a pattern. So kind of make the most of it in terms of, you could also really kind of take your time in this position. Check where the body is and then let it go. And you want to start to be putting a bit of structure maybe into the body, but not at the expense of kind of, again, going into like restriction holding patterns. But feeling constantly in the sector will be something like letting it go, let this all go, let it go, let it go. And the risk is obviously like going so far that you lose the weapon, but in a way that's where I want to kind of go a little bit with it. I don't want to go loose with the structure, but loose with the, or the kind of light with the feeling in terms of. This also helps doing with a katana. If you think about the blade edge just cutting through space, it needs very little to kind of be effective. And the bokken also, thinking the bokken in free fall, hitting somebody, boom, it's going to do a lot of damage. So actually adding power in a sense of that is actually not totally necessary, actually unnecessary. It's just the ability to maybe sometimes control. Yeah, very nice. There we go. And we'll add a few other movements. This one pretty much the same, but it's more going into kind of a yokumen shape. So the danger with this, or with this one, if I'm to do yokumen, is really that the neutral position will be like finding this top of the head position and allowing this to happen. The danger with this one is that, again, same with the fifth screw, that the hands start to maybe pass around the body this way. Not wrong in terms of movement. It would actually be maybe something like this, cutting through this way. It's useful. Maybe it's just a slightly different cut, which will be like side of the body and cutting through this way. If you think about more like pure yokumen work, will be maybe in this kind of area. So it would be like, this will be in my neutral position, and then casting through. And again, you could open the movement out a little bit, let it go, or you could just drop into the ground with it. The pathway now is going to be obviously kind of diagonally through. So, and feel free to stay with the 𝗧𝗔𝗞𝗘𝗠𝗨𝗦 as well to keep, or returning to it. So sometimes find the back drop through the center line. Sometimes allow the body to send the tip up in this arc and down in the diagonal. And this is where you get a little bit where the progression of the system makes sense, because if I've got the spine and I've got the center line, then 𝗧𝗔𝗞𝗘𝗠𝗨𝗦 is really possible. If I've not really got the center line, then as I go to yokumen, everything starts to kind of twist out of structure. So the yokumen is still using the center line, it's just a different kind of pathway up to it. And there's not, you don't really need to go to the spine with it. And if you do go to the spine, maybe you distort the movement, split it, create a kind of false split in the movement. So really the kind of 𝗷𝗡𝗡𝗡𝗡 as a movement, so kind of just a extrapolated movement from 𝗓𝗡𝗡𝗡𝗡 work. The tendency is to see it as a kind of circular strike going around the body, but actually it's just an adaptation of the 𝗓𝗡𝗡𝗡𝗡 movement. Basically taking that vertical path and just taking it diagonally. Great. Okay, and then the risk in this one is that the 𝗓𝗡𝗡𝗡 and 𝗷𝗡𝗡𝗡 become a bit blurred, and then I maybe do things like go with the 𝗷𝗡𝗡𝗡 and then find the back, or maybe like go up and then drop into a 𝗓𝗡𝗡𝗡. Actually, none of that's an issue, and again, it kind of happens, but I need to. It needs to be known that I'm doing it. So if I go there, like a clear intention would be like, can I go up through, and then can I arc the sword away, or can I go up circularly and then drop into the center line? And that change is going to come from the body, obviously, but I don't want it to be like a confused movement, which will be like going circularly through and then dropping and then going something like this, and the body just ends up trying to do. It's like multitasking the body, and the body's really bad at multitasking. The mind's really bad at multitasking as well. A similar story entirely, but just give it one clearer movement's better. But again, I can maybe play with changing it or going to position and changing it, going to position, changing the body, but it's going to be on the level of, again, kind of what decides when that kind of stuff's coming up. So last. Okay, now play with this. It's a little bit like this kind of, again, these kind of holding patterns, or if I'm kind of going out and maybe stopping the body, which is very useful, obviously, if you think about control. We're like, I'm going to strike and don't. Play with this a little bit, so maybe start to bring the strikes in, where you feel like you can complete the strikes, and then maybe play with every once in a while controlling it. So again, I want to notice, I want to have the ability to stop and control the weapon. Yeah, but then again, it's going to come at the level of the body, basically saying stop in a sense. So it would be like stop, and the kind of orders kind of given from the body, obviously. But the danger with that is that I start to go into positions and kind of strike and hold. So when you do those ones where you're kind of, if you think about pausing the action, that the sensation of the body again is like putting the action on hold in a sense, and that's often the kind of danger we go to in partner practice, because we're going to positions where we're in a dangerous position, we kind of hold, and then tension starts to creep in. Or the opposite is I see those moments as striking moments when I start to kind of develop striking patterns off target for the body, again, kind of a dangerous, or kind of a problem in terms of safety work. But this play will also be like sometimes fully strike through, and sometimes just have the feeling that you're kind of just pausing it. Again, it's stuff that comes up in, particularly in partner work, obviously. And it's actually just on this other idea would be like, if you were to simplify this just into body work, would be like going to take a step and then not taking the step, and then maybe just pulling the body back. So it's just the level that I can kind of, and just work with the body a little bit. And in terms of, again, kind of finding the ground, being balanced, grounded, just on that kind of level again, whether I can do that with precision or not. So let's see. Okay, let's do two. This is a really strange one, but it's like I'm going to do the strike and I don't do it. So I really give the body like the command. In this case, will be like a forward step into a 𝗷𝗡𝗡𝗡𝗡. Really give the command to do it. So it's a kind of, again, a kind of settling exercise, and I want to have a very clear sense. There's like there's an attack. So there's like this, and I just don't go with the movement in this case. And then every once in a while, go with it and let the body go. So it's just in the end, it's like a signaling exercise that I don't want to be kind of giving away a lot of signaling before I go, that I want to kind of relax into it. And the one that goes very clearly like go. Now, just take it and kind of go with it. But it needs a lot of kind of, in a sense, I go like, not the right one, not the right one, not the right one, that one, and then go. So it's a kind of strange one, but it's in this kind of, we call this like inhibition in a sense. I'm going to like inhibit the body, inhibit, no, because the body's not quite ready. And then you notice the one that goes like, yeah, go. And those ones are kind of really great, but you kind of catch them. It's like surfing, you catch the right wave, that one, follow it. No, not the right one. And sometimes we're following the wrong way, like not big enough. It's not the right one. Oh, I didn't catch it. Or you get too strong and the body goes out. So that's a tricky exercise, but it's a really nice one. So. And maybe you notice the ones that go like when the body goes like full open action all as one thing. Maybe again it's the kind of just my relationship to the ground again. So it's again in this level of like full body connection, obviously in a very clear order, but somewhere on that kind of level. Anyway, it starts to come up. Great. Okie dokie. Good. We're going to stop right there. Great. どうもありがとうございます。
どうもありがとうございました。
Okie dokie.